Hi everyone, this is OCD Live. I'm Ali Grayman, and let's get to some questions. So the first question I have is about the types of thoughts that are not kind of provoking a compulsion, but just generally thoughts that are scary, how to deal with those thoughts. And again, when you're showing the response of fear to your mind is going to send you more thoughts. It doesn't matter if it comes with a compulsion or it doesn't. It's more about the response of fear. So when you get this thought, so when you get a trigger and you get the thought, some fear is already coming to you. That's fine. That just has to do from, before you were reacting this way, right? But now to change that, you can't multiply that fear. So some fear is coming to you. You have to accept the fear that's coming to you as a symptom of OCD, not as something valid and real. But yeah, this thought gives me some fear, but I'm not going to multiply it. I'm not going to make it worse. And the person was asking if a reassurance is okay for those thoughts, and it's absolutely not okay. Because again, the more reassurance you seek, the more you're trying to convince your mind that the situation is dangerous when it's really not. So you're kind of confusing your mind further, right? So basically just reacting as if it doesn't matter, even though it does give you fear. And this could be even thoughts that are more like real in nature, just everyday worries. So again, refusing that reaction of fear, that's what's going to get you out of it. So the next question I have is, hi Ali, could you cover the topic of magical thinking and OCD and how to recover from these types of thoughts? I want to know how to get over it and best deal with them in particular. So with magical thinking, basically what it is, just for everybody, is when you're worried about something that has almost nothing to do with the situation, but you connect the two. So for especially like for young kids, they deal with that a lot. Like if I step on a crack on the sidewalk, something bad's gonna happen to my mom or dad. They're not really connected things, but the person connects the two together. Or I have power over some sort of situation just by using my mind, or something like that. So with that, basically, again, the thought is coming into your mind. It is giving you fear, but you're not multiplying that fear, because that's the worst thing you can do, is to say, oh my God, it is going to happen. It is real. I'm going to pay a lot of attention to it. And because that just keeps the situation going. So you want to say, no, yes, it is coming to my mind. It is real in terms of the thought is there, but the thought has no validity behind it. So I'm not going to address it. I'm not going to pay any attention to it as if it's valid, because that's how people get involved in the magical thinking, is because they keep giving validity to these thoughts. That yes, it could happen, yes, it is really true, and then they start to think of consequences. Well, if it is really true, then this and this and this would happen. So it starts to become almost like a chain reaction, and you want to stop that and say, I'm not reacting, I don't care, I'm not going any further with this, I'm not solving it and analyzing it and trying to figure out if there's a possibility or not. I'm just leaving it, and yes, the fear is there, but I'm not addressing that fear. When you do that, what's going to happen is the fear is going to be there for a little while, but after that it's going to go, because you're not powering it up. So it will stay for a little bit, and then it's going to go away. But you have to be strong during that time, because it's going to try to really get you to react. And you don't want to give that any power to that. So next question I have is listening to these videos a form of getting help? So I would say yeah, because what you want to do is you want to make sure that you understand how OCD works. OCD is actually a very simplistic disorder in terms of its operation. It always operates the same for everybody who has OCD. The thoughts are different, but the way it comes, the way it goes away, the way it gets better and worse is always the same. It's like clockwork. I talk to people all day long, and it's always the same thing. And the reactions are the same, just the nature of the thought is different. But even then, it only goes between like a few themes, so it's not that different. So if you know how this mechanism works, of course it puts you in a better position where you are able to fight it better, because you understand, okay, it's not just I'm getting this fear because of this, and this. It makes sense. it's fine, and I'm not going to be afraid of it, rather than when, for you guys as well as when I had OCD myself, right? That when you had no idea anything about OCD and you're faced with this problem and you don't know how to deal with it, and it's all very scary and overwhelming, um, you start to drown in it, basically, because you don't understand what's happening to your mind. If you are starting to understand what's happening to your mind and how it works, you gain control, and that really does help. And that's why I do the shows, because it really does help project you into the next level of recovery. Of course, after that, it is up to you to do the recovery work, right? But it does help to make you understand what is happening, because that's kind of a number one thing. If you understand the problem, you have the tools to fix that problem. You still have to do the work with the tools, but you have the tools. So yeah, I do think it helps. I wouldn't do it if it didn't, right? So next question is videotaping driving in the beginning of getting over a hit and run OCD bad? Yes, because you're not getting over it if you're videotaping it. You're making yourself worse. It is reassurance seeking. You want to make sure that you are not hitting anybody and that everything is fine, and then you can review it. And that becomes a very strong pattern. It's a pattern that I see a lot with driving. People videotaping themselves, audio taping themselves, having a friend there, having some sort of basically like a security blanket that I'm safe. And when you're saying that to your mind, what you're really saying is that I'm scared. So the signal of fear again, and that signal of fear is going to give you more thoughts. And then, none of it is foolproof, right? That you're going to say, okay, well, your mind's just going to throw you a different thought, right? That, okay, well, you're videotaping yourself, but maybe it's not the right angle, or maybe somebody would, you know what I mean? So it will always give you a loophole of how it could be wrong. There's never a foolproof thing where OCD will say, okay, I'm satisfied, it's fine. I mean, it very, very rarely, and it's just when the situation is just like, ultra simplistic, but for most people's OCD themes, the mind will come up with a way to negate the effort that is done through reassurance. So it's not a battle that you can win. Don't play that game. You want to say, no, I'm not going to videotape myself while driving. I don't care. I'm not paying attention. If I hit somebody and the cops start knocking on my door, then I'll know it's real. Before then, I'm not dealing with it, and going very strong like that. Because honestly, I help people all day long. Not one person out of all the hit and run situations that I've talked to people about with the OCD, right? Not one was real. And they have, each one of those people has hundreds of those situations. So you'll be the first one with this situation, so it's not realistic. So, and not to give you, this is actually giving you reassurance a little bit, but you have to understand that there's no actual need to record yourself. It's just done to appease OCD, and that's getting you deeper into the problem. So absolutely don't do that. It is going to be harder without that security blanket, but it is better for your recovery. So the next question I have is, hi Ali, I always overthink things and think the worst, and it always ends up in me thinking I'm in trouble or have done something wrong and people will hate me. I think this is part of my OCD making me feel this way, and it clings to everything I love. How can I get over this and these thoughts? And is my OCD making me feel this way? Thank you. So yes, it is your OCD, and this is you guys are gonna get tired of me saying this is a typical OCD, but all OCD thoughts are pretty much very, very similar. So everything is pretty typical. There's not a lot of new things that I hear. So thinking that you're a bad person, thinking that you will do something wrong or that you did something wrong, thinking that people will hate you, maybe thinking that people already hate you. All of these variations are very common for OCD. So yes, it is definitely an OCD way of thinking. And again, the thought will come in, well, what if people hate you, or just people hate you? But at the same time, you're saying, no, not paying attention, not reacting, not taking it seriously. So the fear comes with that thought. You're not multiplying the fear. You're letting it sit there. You're not necessarily pushing it away out of your mind because you don't have the ability to do that, the thought will just leave on its own, right? But you're not giving it any power. So it basically is just going to run out of fuel and go away on its own. But until it does, it's going to stay in your mind. So you kind of have to accept it as, yeah, it's going to be in my mind for a little while. It's fine. It's not a big deal. You know, it is bothering me. That's real. But the message that it's sending is not real, you know? So you're going to choose not to react to it, and you will see that these thoughts will start to kind of dissipate as time goes on. But also with these types of thoughts, it's very important for you not to change your routine in any way. So say, for example, with these thoughts, it's common to become less outgoing, not spending a lot of time with people because you think they might not like you or things like that. So you want to do exposures. So on purpose, go out, on purpose, do things, you know? So you're showing your mind that, no, you're not buying into the fear, but you're talking the talk and you're walking the walk, so sort of speak, right? That you're saying it and you're acting as if what you're saying you're believing, you know? So that just sends a very strong message of power, that you have the power over your mind, you know, not OCD. So it's very important to do that as well. So next question I have is, how can you identify OCD in a child? And if your child does have OCD, what is the best way to help them understand it? Thank you. So you will see patterns that the child is doing that are not normal, such as stepping on cracks is very common. The child will look like they are kind of removed from removed from the world almost, you know what I mean? Like they're there and standing next to you, but they're looking away, kind of thing. Their mind is away from you. Do you know what I mean? Like you get that feeling that they're thinking about something deeply. And if it's happening on pattern, if they're always anxious, if there are picking their nails, that's a big sign as well. Now, there's not one sign, it's all of these things combined together. These are kind of the more hidden things. Now, in terms of obvious things, the child will come up to you and, you know, actually say, I'm having, you know, thoughts about this or something like that. So that's really how you are able to tell. But most of the time, what I hear from my clients is that there is a pattern of behavior of, you know, doing repetitive physical compulsions, such as, you know, saying a word a certain amount of times, or counting to a certain number, or stepping on something, not stepping on something, things like that, jumping a certain number of times. So those kind of things are very common with kids, so just watch out for that. What's the best way to help them understand it? Basically, you want to talk about OCD almost like it's like a bully, right? So this mean bully is coming to you. If the more you give it power, right, the more it's going to continue to bother you, right? Or looking at it as like a machine, right? Like a car, you know. You're giving the car fuel when you're paying a lot of attention to it. The more fuel you give it, the worse the thoughts are going to get. If you want to get rid of the thoughts, you have to stop giving the car fuel. And in order to do that, you have to refuse the thoughts. So basically, same thing that we're saying on this channel, but in a more simplistic way of that they can understand. You know, you can put it maybe in perspective of like charging their iPad or device, right? That I'm charging my device, I'm giving the device power. So the more I'm charging these thoughts, the more power they get. So something like that, you know, so they start to understand how to react. And then you can show them that, look, you know, you reacted this way, now you're feeling better. Or you reacted this way, now you're feeling worse. So they're also seeing a pattern of how their general well-being changes depending on their reaction. So they're seeing progress as well, because it's important. Now, with all of this, I'm talking about more kids that are probably like 10, 11 and under. Anybody older, like teenagers, I think that they can pretty much grasp everything we're talking about on this channel. So even allowing them to listen to this, we try to keep things as PG as possible. So, you know, I don't see a problem with having them listen to the channel if they feel like they need to. Maybe not all the videos, but some specific videos, I would say that would be okay. So the next question I have is, the person is asking, when they're having OCD thoughts and they're over time, you know, if they're worried about it for 2-3 days or a week, at that point they start to care less and less about the thought, because the thought just starts to fade away. But then the person is worried that they're a bad person because they're not reacting with anxiety anymore to the thought. So the fact that the thought is going away is causing anxiety, because the person feels like, well, why am I not reacting? And then that starts up the anxiety again. So that's almost like a circle, right, being closed around you. So what you want to do is to break free from the circle, saying, I'm not this thought is, you know, ridiculous to begin with. The fact that it's going away is because I'm not powering it up. So I have no reason to feel the anxiety towards this. This is my brain sending me thoughts. It's fine that I don't feel anxiety. I shouldn't feel anxiety because it's just OCD thought. And allowing it to go, you know, and not reacting to it like that, because it's the reaction that keeps it going. So you have to make sure that that reaction is not happening, you know, not allowing yourself to, you know, really think it through and really analyze, and why am I thinking, why am I not thinking, what happened, all of these different things. You want to get away from that, saying just, the thought is there, fine, I'm not dealing with it, you know. And it's, once it's going away, fine, good, it's good that it's going away. That means you're doing the right thing. That means that you're not powering it up, and there's no reason to start powering it up now if you weren't powering it up before. Do you know what I'm saying? So just refusing all reaction. So the next questions that I have it's 3 questions from the same person, so I'm gonna kind of answer them all at once, because they're kind of interconnected, I believe. So the first one is, my thoughts keeps changing and they keep on adding up. So the fact that they're adding up and the fact that they keep changing means that you are working on it. It means that you are trying to disregard them, because if you were really, really paying attention, you would just have one thought and it would just stay there for a very, very long time, you know? So it means that you're doing the work. You need to do more of it and just continue that process. But it is not a bad thing. You want them to change as fast as possible, because that means that they don't have the ability to really grab onto you and stay there for a long time. And then the person asked the question, why does this keep happening? That's why it's happening, is because you're not powering them up enough to stay for a long time. But at the same time, what's happening is your mind knows that this general theme, or these certain number of themes, are very important to you, and generally they provoke your OCD. So it just keeps giving you new thoughts in order to try to protect you, you know, from this danger that it thinks you're in when you're not. But because you were reacting with fear before, it thinks that you're in danger that has something to do with these topics. So it throws you a new topic, you don't react to that, or you react for a little bit, then you refuse the reaction. So okay, fine, and then it throws you another one. This process will eventually stop, but in order for it to stop faster, you need to be stronger in refusing the reaction, because really you're still choosing not to react. You're just choosing it a lot later. So say, for example, if you get a thought for 3-4 hours, you pay attention to it, then you kind of say forget about it, or you get sidetracked and you just move on. But you still did the same reaction of moving on. You just did it 3-4 hours later. What if you do it 2-3 minutes later? You know, there's a lot more impact, and really the result is the same. You still let the thought go, right? So in terms of danger, right? But like, I'm putting it in quotes. You know what I mean? It's the same type of thing, right? But the reaction has to be quicker, because that's how it is for people who don't have OCD. It's not that people who don't have OCD don't get weird thoughts. They do get weird thoughts as well, but they just switch for them so quickly that sometimes they don't even register. You know, it's seconds, milliseconds, you know? But for people with OCD, it's a lot longer, and then they analyze and they take them seriously. People without OCD don't take these thoughts seriously. And the third question is, hi Ali, I keep having moments of OCD or that are OCD free, but then I'm back. And again, this shows progress. Those moments that you're having, means that the brain was not able to come up with anything in those moments. That's how good you are doing in terms of your recovery. As you continue on this process of recovery, those moments will start to get bigger and bigger in terms of spans of time. And the moments that you have OCD will start to get smaller until most of the time you don't have OCD, and then you have sometimes OCD times, and then it will go away completely. So this is the shift that's happening. So that's exactly what you should be seeing. You're right on the progress. Just keep going. Whatever you're doing right now, it seems, based just on these 3 questions, it really does seem like it's working. And I know at times, when you're dealing with OCD, it feels like it's not working. But if overall you're feeling that you're having more and more moments that are OCD free, that your anxiety is less, then it means you're doing the right thing. And then the opposite, if your OCD is ramping up, if your anxiety is higher, that means you're doing something wrong. You have to go back and see what exactly you are doing wrong and fix it. And usually that's reassurance. Either self-reassurance, or from others, usually self-reassurance. So next question I have is, hello, thank you for your videos. They have been a huge help to me. That's really sweet. Thank you. I have a few questions for you. First question is, would you have any advice on generalized anxiety? So with that, I'm actually starting another channel that's not related to OCD, but just talking about anxiety and stress and dealing with everyday life stress rather than just specifically OCD, right? So instead of dealing with fake thoughts, we're dealing with real situations, real thoughts, and that's going to be a separate channel. But basically, you want to make sure that your levels of stress are not exceeding the amount of stress that you can generally handle right now, because that's what causes the anxiety. So you want to make sure that if you are feeling like you are overwhelmed, you have to reduce stress in your life. So adding time to sleep, adding time to meditate, making sure you're not consuming too much coffee. All of these things are really will push you forward in terms of feeling less anxious, because you can drive yourself crazy, just going around and around and doing things. Now, I'm guilty of that myself, but it's not a good thing, because you don't want to be compounding stress. It is important to be putting yourself first. It is important to be eating right, sleeping, all of these things that we hear all the time, but at the same time, we're not doing them. So it's actually doing them, and taking time to give your mind a chance to rebuild, especially because if you have OCD, you're that much more predisposed to anxiety, so you have to watch your stress levels so you don't get yourself in a situation where you are overly anxious, and that can cause OCD as well, because too much stress will impact your OCD recovery. So the second question is, how come I can sometimes start my day feeling happy, okay, and not letting the thoughts get to me, then randomly I start to feel down, anxious, and bothered by the thoughts? This can happen because of many different things. It could be because, again, your first question is you have too much anxiety, you have too much stress happening, not necessarily to do with OCD, but just generally in the day, and it causes you to panic in terms of OCD as well. So that could be one. Also, sometimes the brain will throw the thought at you and you don't react, but then after a while of getting one thought after another, eventually you end up reacting, and as soon as you react, your anxiety goes up and gets worse, So that could be another way. So you have to look at what's happening and why the thoughts are sticking later in the day. It usually has to do with reassurance, but what is causing you to seek that reassurance later on in the day? Is it that you just had enough, you're tired, that your reaction is slowing down, that you're, and then addressing that situation? Or is it just stress from the rest of your life that's causing it, and solving the problem that's causing you to react? Last question, do you think is it possible to take an antidepressant to help aid the recovery of OCD, but eventually successfully wean off the medicine and still be in recovery? So yeah, of course, and a lot of my clients do that in the beginning they start out taking antidepressants or whatever kind of medication, and as they feel better, they don't need that high of a dose, so you go down in the dose as you are in the process of recovery. And you'll feel it, you'll feel that you don't need it anymore. When you feel that you don't need it, then that's when you don't need it, But also I would advise against going out, like when you're taking the medication, stopping the medication cold turkey. You want to make sure that you're kind of weaning yourself down slowly, just to make sure that the habits are sticking and that you're not going, because once you start removing the medication, that additional help of feeling good is going to go away, and you will experience more of the OCD thoughts, right? So each level you're going to have to handle it and make sure that you're making them go on your own, not using the medication as the tool, right? So as they're going away, you're also reducing that feel-good part of the medication. So it's kind of a balance. You have to see where you are. I would say go down a step, wait a month, then go down another step, however it works with your doses, right? And then that way you are consistent, and you could see, okay, I've gone down the step, yet I still progressed in my recovery, so that's fine, so I can keep going, So you're addressing the question, am I okay all the time? So you're continuing the progress, basically. So yeah, no, but that's how everybody kind of does it when they start on medication, and then they just wean themselves down when they don't need it. So it's a typical situation, but just be careful with it a little bit, So the last question I have is, the person is asking about harm OCD, and the person is doing good work at reducing the thoughts and making the thoughts go away, but the thoughts are still kind of hanging around and still coming in, even though the person is successful. And this is just a reaction of the brain, because you are doing the right thing, but the brain wants to make sure that you are safe. So it's gonna kind of send you thoughts for a little while, just to make sure you're safe. This will go away on its own. You don't have to do anything special for it. Just keep going with how you're doing. You're doing fine. You're seeing recovery, and these thoughts will start to fall away. So you don't need to do anything extra, but just stay on track and try to reduce your reaction even further. So you get a harm OCD thought or whatever OCD thought, you're really not even giving it a few minutes of time, and that will speed up the process of when they stop coming into your mind altogether. But that will happen on its own. You don't have to worry about it. So that's all the questions I could fit into today's show. I do have more that I didn't address. I will address them next week for sure. Some of the more important ones I will address in the emails. If you have a question that you want me to answer in the show, please put it below this video or below any of my videos, really. And I'll get them and I'll answer on the next show. If you need more information, you can always visit youhaveocd.com. There's a private recovery program, which is one-on-one talking with me. There's also ebooks there and a lot of free information, so please check that out. If you didn't subscribe to this channel, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.